Not in my wildest dreams, Matty, but just like you guys, I dreamt as a kid of faraway treasures, islands and pirates.
So they take this out, they keep digging, they get down 10 more feet. Now they're down 20 feet, and they're boys. They hit another layer of oak logs, and they give up.
Forget the flood tunnels and mysterious stones for a second. The real Oak Island bombshell might be in Gary Drayton's pocket. One of his most overlooked finds is now being re-examined, and its shocking origin could dismantle centuries of lore. This isn't just about treasure anymore, it's about exposing a potential historical cover-up that Drayton himself may have accidentally stumbled upon. The cross that challenges everything. Get this. The single most important artifact ever found on Oak Island might also be the one that blows the whole Templar Knights theory right out of the water. We're talking about the now famous lead cross discovered by none other than Gary Drayton in 2017. On the surface, it was a monumental find. A heavy, simple cross pulled from the mud of Smith's Cove. The team was ecstatic, immediately linking it to the Knights Templar, the secretive holy order rumored to have buried treasure on the island. It seemed like the ultimate proof, the piece of the puzzle that finally connected all the dots. But hold on, because this is where the story takes a sharp turn. Truth be told, the real story of the cross is far more complicated and, frankly, far more controversial. While the show celebrated the find as a Templar relic,
Holy shamoly, all right.
It's a cross.
independent analysis and historical deep dives suggest something else entirely. The design of the cross, a simple Latin cross with a square hole at the top, is not exclusively Templar. In fact, this style was common among Spanish and Portuguese explorers and missionaries from the 16th to the 18th centuries. But here's the kicker. Tests conducted on the lead itself revealed its origin. The lead was traced back to a mine in southern France, which sounds promising, right? The Templars were powerful in France, but here's the thing, that same mine was also a primary source of lead for French and Spanish colonial efforts for hundreds of years after the Templars were disbanded in 1312. This single fact throws a huge wrench in the works. The cross is more likely a personal religious item from a much later period, perhaps lost by an explorer, a soldier, or even an early settler. This is where the idea of a deception comes in. By focusing so heavily on the possible, yet unlikely Templar connection, the show might be ignoring a more grounded and perhaps less glamorous historical truth. Gary Drayton, in finding this cross, may have accidentally provided the evidence that debunks the show's central premise. He found a piece of history, but the narrative spun around it is what's being questioned. Is the team so focused on finding what they want to find that they're ignoring what they're actually finding? Gary just finds the stuff. How it's interpreted is everything. The controversy deepens when you consider other finds Drayton has made.
Is this worth anything?
It could be. That could be part of the treasure that we're looking for. Don't have to be gold and silver. It could be some fantastic religious treasure.
He's unearthed numerous Spanish Maravedi coins, buttons from French and British military uniforms, and other objects that point to a long history of European activity on the island. None of these things scream secret Templar vault. Instead, they paint a picture of an island that was a stopping point, a repair station, or a small settlement for various groups over centuries. The real treasure might not be a single hoard, but the scattered story of all these different visitors. By finding these items, Gary Drayton is adding chapters to a history book that the main treasure hunt seems to be ignoring. What if the ultimate Oak Island deception isn't an outright lie, but a carefully edited truth? What if the show's producers are cherry-picking the theories that make for the best television, even when the evidence, found by their own star metal detectorist, points in a different direction? But if the cross isn't the key to the Templar treasure, then what about the most legendary part of the island? What if the real deception is the very hole they've poured millions of dollars into? The Money Pit has been the heart of the Oak Island mystery. It's a legend built on stories of booby traps, mysterious platforms every 10 feet, and a fabled treasure vault. But let's be honest for a second, after decades of modern searching and millions upon millions of dollars spent by the Lagina brothers alone, what has the Money Pit actually produced? The answer is shockingly little. They found wood, coconut fiber, and traces of metal, but not a single gold bar, not one chest, not a single definitive piece of treasure.
Think that's coconut fiber?
That is interesting. Well, it's hair-like.
Yeah.
and it's clumped as well.
Yeah, no, that is very interesting.
Yeah.
This is where Gary Drayton's role becomes absolutely critical. While the heavy machinery drills endlessly into the money pit area, creating a landscape of shafts and caissons, Gary is walking the island's surface and pulling actual verifiable history from the ground. Think about the contrast. The team spends an entire season and a fortune to drill a new shaft, H8, only to be stopped by debris and flooding. Meanwhile, a few hundred feet away in the swamp, Gary gets a signal on his detector and unearths a 17th century coin. Which one is closer to the truth of the island? This has led to a growing and uncomfortable question. Is the money pit the biggest red herring in history? It's a fascinating story, but what if that's all it is? A story. Some researchers now propose that the original pit, discovered in 1795, might have been nothing more than a natural sinkhole or a simple tar kiln pit, common in the area for ship repair. The stories of platforms and traps could have been embellished over time, growing more elaborate with each telling to attract investors for new treasure hunts. It became a self-fulfilling legend. Gary's finds support this alternative theory. He consistently finds artifacts in places like Smith's Cove, the swamp.
These guys to dig for me. But yeah, Rick and I were on Smith's Cove Beach, and Rick dug that out.
And on the island's uplands, places connected by a stone road, not the money pit. These finds, like the British and French military buttons and the ornate hinges, suggest that the real activity on Oak Island was related to ship maintenance, military presence, or trade. The so-called treasure might have been nothing more than the supplies and personal effects of the people who used the island as a temporary base. Gary isn't finding clues to a central vault, he's finding the scattered remains of everyday life and industry from centuries ago. What Gary Drayton really found. The numbers are hard to ignore. The Lagina brothers have invested an incredible fortune into the money pit search. Every time they hit a supposed anomaly or a void on a sonar scan, excitement builds. But the result is almost always the same. More digging, more water, and more questions. Gary Drayton, on the other hand, with a relatively inexpensive metal detector and a keen eye, has produced a steady stream of tangible artifacts. He provides the wins that keep the show moving forward, even as the main quest stalls. This has led some critics to claim that the show is trapped in a loop. They must keep searching the money pit because that's the legend, but the real history is what Gary keeps finding just under the surface. The ultimate deception, then, may be the focus on the pit itself. It's the star of the show, but it might be a star with no substance, a black hole that consumes money and hope while the real story lies scattered all around it. And speaking of scattered stories, Gary's work in the mysterious swamp has uncovered clues that point to something even stranger than buried treasure. The Oak Island Swamp is one of the most puzzling locations on the island. It's a man-made anomaly with a strange stone-paved area and an underwater feature that looks eerily like a sunken ship. The team has invested a massive amount of time and resources into exploring it, believing it could be the place where treasure was offloaded and transported to the money pit. But once again, Gary Drayton's discoveries are telling a different and potentially more controversial story. Gary has had incredible success metal detecting on the edges of the swamp. He's found everything from old tools and spikes to that incredible Moretti coin, a rare piece of currency that has no business being in Nova Scotia. The show often frames these as more clues pointing to the grand treasure theory. But what if they point to something else? What if the swamp wasn't a dock for treasure, but a work site for something far more practical? Get this. One of the leading alternative theories supported by Gary's finds is that the swamp was once a site for salt production or ship repair. The stone causeway? Not a treasure road, but a simple work platform to keep people and equipment out of the muck. The ship-shaped anomaly? It might actually be a ship, but not one filled with gold. It could be the remains of a vessel that was intentionally sunk to be salvaged for parts, a common practice in the age of sail. The strange metals found in the water are not necessarily from a treasure chest, but could be the residue from blacksmithing and repair work. Gary's finds fit this theory perfectly. The tools, the spikes, the random assortment of coins from different nations, these are exactly the kinds of things you'd expect to find at a busy multinational maritime worksite that operated for many years. A Spanish sailor drops a coin, a British soldier loses a button, a French craftsman misplaces a tool. It's the story of industry, not a single hidden treasure. This doesn't make the history any less fascinating, but it's a huge departure from the Knights Templar narrative. The potential deception here is one of omission. The evidence for a saltworks or ship repair yard is strong, but it's not as exciting as a pirate treasure or a holy relic. The show has a story to tell, and a story about industrial history might not be what keeps millions of viewers tuning in each week. So while the team drains the swamp looking for a golden payday, they might be standing on top of a historically significant but non-treasure-related archaeological site. Gary Drayton, by pulling up the physical proof of this activity, is the one uncovering this hidden history, whether he intends to or not. He's revealing the real secret of the swamp, that it was a place of work, not wealth. This raises a crucial question about the man himself. He's a genuine, world-renowned treasure hunter, so how does he fit into this picture? Is he a willing participant in the show's narrative, or is he a pure professional whose findings are simply being used to fit a predetermined story? The Bobby Dazzlers dilemma. So who is Gary Drayton really? Before he was a household name on History Channel, he was already a legend in the world of treasure hunting. Originally from Grimsby, England, Drayton moved to South Florida and made a name for himself finding lost Spanish treasure on the beaches of the Treasure Coast. He's written books, he's found millions of dollars worth of artifacts, and he is, by all accounts, the real deal. He's not an actor. He's an expert who was brought onto the show for his specific world-class skills. This puts him in a unique and fascinating position. Unlike the Lagina brothers, who are driven by a childhood dream, or the other experts who are focused on geology or engineering, Gary's job is simple: find metal. He goes where the history tells him to go, and he unearths what the past has left behind. He doesn't create theories, he provides the hard data. And this is the core of the Drayton dilemma. His professional integrity is based on finding and identifying artifacts correctly. But he's also a star on a reality TV show that thrives on speculation and cliffhangers. Truth be told, there's no evidence that Gary Drayton has ever called the show a scam or a deception. He seems to genuinely love what he does and enjoys working with the team. However, you can see the dilemma play out on screen. Gary will find an object, say an old ox shoe. He'll identify it, date it, and explain its practical purpose. In the very next scene, the team might be speculating that these ox shoes were used to haul the Ark of the Covenant to the money pit. Gary provides the fact, the show provides the fiction. The exposure that Gary Drayton is bringing about is therefore not a deliberate act of whistleblowing. It's an exposure of the process of television itself. He is a constant walking source of ground truth on an island of speculation. Every time he pulls a real, identifiable object from the ground, he anchors the show to reality, even if just for a moment before the narrative machine kicks back into gear. He is exposing the vast gap between what can be proven and what is merely theorized. His work consistently shows that Oak Island has a rich, complex, and multi-layered history. The potential deception lies in the show's tendency to funnel all of that rich history towards a single, spectacular, and as yet unproven theory about a massive buried treasure. Gary's work exposes the fact that the Oak Island story has many possible endings, but we are often only shown the one that involves a treasure vault. Is Gary Drayton the key to solving the real mystery, or just another character in the greatest treasure story ever told? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.